Hello, everyone. We are back. I don't even know if I remember how to do the open anymore.
Yeah, you got to do the opening.
Okay, let's do it together. Okay, so I
I
can
don't know how
remember.
to do. I've never done it. You have to do it.
Hello, welcome to Human Tech, a podcast about the intersection between humans and technology. My name is Guthrie. I am here with Susan. Hello, Susan.
That was pretty good, Guthrie.
Yeah, off the top, coming in.
You remembered.
Um, yeah. I did remember. You were not very helpful at all in that intro.
Well, I've never done the intro. I just listened to you do the
You just
intro.
listened to me do the intro. All
Yeah.
right. Well, we are
We've been
very
gone for so
so
long.
long.
Do we
Months
even
and months
know?
and months. Yes. I think we've done we there was we did one podcast at the end of January and then there was a gap and we did one in March.
We did?
Yeah.
Oh. And
But
then we
it's
didn't do
been
one till now.
it's been about 6
Wow.
months. Yeah.
Do you think everyone has forgotten all about us?
Yeah, everyone's
Okay.
moved on.
So we're starting all over.
Uh it's been a busy year
Yeah.
in a good way.
Yeah.
Um, for those of you who may not know, we had work to do. Actually, we had sort of two.
Well, don't sound so surprised. We always have work to do.
We often have work to do. But we actually were very fortunate to be rather busy with work.
Very busy with work. Yeah.
So that was a big part of it. And I also had a kid.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of working from home. And so it's been hard to find a time to record between
When you
the
didn't think
diapers and
you'd
the
be
screaming
interrupted
and the
by a
lack of sleep.
baby. Hmm.
So, it still may take us a little bit to iron out some of the schedules, but we hope to be back to recording regularly. But um, that's the nature of things. How are you
Yeah.
doing?
How am
I
I
hate
doing?
long kind of non sequiturs at the beginning of a podcast, so we'll just spend a couple seconds. But I do want to. It's been so long. I just want to say, ask how you're doing.
I think I'm doing well, but yeah, it has been kind of busy and for me a fair amount of travel uh I'll be honest, if I can be honest here. I'm working, but I'm also been spending time doing non-work things. So, I've been a bit distracted over the last several months
In a good way.
in a good way. So,
All
I will try and get my head squared on
right.
headset, something like that.
Oh man. Well, it's off to a bad start. Let's talk about some UX stuff.
Let's talk about UX stuff. I don't
Uh,
know. I'm worried about UX.
okay. Let's start with the more positive things.
Okay.
Um, I did go to UXPA.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We haven't had done a
That's right.
podcast since
Yep.
then. You went to
That was in
UXPA,
Florida.
which actually was
You did not
was
go.
I did not go. And you said it was very there were a lot of people there, very bustling, very busy.
Um, it was things I'll say about UXPA. I don't want to say anything bad about UXPA. I still think it's the premier UX conference. There was a friend of mine I was talking to who had also I met at that conference, and he had gone to
Some other
UX
conference.
y'all
Oh, I don't know that one.
y'all UX whatever. It was in Raleigh, which it didn't
Oh,
doesn't. Did they say? I mean, that was North Carolina. It's like the tip of y'all, but whatever. Anyways, and he said it was a good conference. Dot dot dot. There are things I would have changed, right? But it was good, and I
what?
think that was
UXPA was good?
no the
The
UX y'all,
UX y'all.
and I think that sort of summarizes my thoughts. Like, for it depends how you grade it, right? If you grade it as just a UX conference, it
Yeah.
was good.
Yeah.
If you grade it as on a I guess at the bar that UXPA would like themselves to be at, of course I have quibbles. They are not huge. they are small quibbles, I would say. Um, for example, the venue, as always, was great, but almost too good. So while we were there, Amex had a huge thing in sort of the same conference area that we were
Yeah.
in, and so compared to their whole setup, it felt a little empty. In
Mm.
if a room was full, there was a good energy, but this was a massive, huge conference center. And
Oh,
so
okay.
so at the peak of it, it was buzzy and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
good. But there were more moments where it felt a little just sparse, just because, I mean, there were 200 people, but it was in a room that could
Uh,
fit 600.
yeah,
But these
yeah.
are, anyways, I'm not here to quibble about UXPA. Everyone has their quibbles about UXPA, and I am chief among them. There's lots of things um, I could talk about. I will maintain I went there with the intention of trying to have some sort of, I guess I don't want to say resolution, but progress. Me personally, I do have some connections, so I'm not just sort of speaking as a zealot. I do have, like I'm not saying I have the ear of anyone. I'm not on any committees or anything, but there are people in my orbit who I can talk to, who may or may not have influence, um, in these groups. And the I really wanted UXPA this year, coming out of it, to have a unification of some of the local UX chapters that
Mm,
are really struggling.
mm.
As you know, coming out of the pandemic, a lot of local UX chapters
They
didn't make
never
it.
came back. Yeah.
And then I was like, well, okay. I mean, UXPA has never been good supporting the local chapters. They've never been great supporting the international chapters. They've always sort of been an annual conference first.
Mm,
Um, and that's a quibble I have, that why is there not a UXPA chapter, in every single
mm.
city
And
over a
why don't
million
they get more
people?
support from the parent
But
or
there's not, right? And there's a whole host of reasons. And again, I don't want to make this the complaint about UXPA podcast. There's a lot of reasons, and there's a lot of history, and that all ties in. But so there was a point in time where I think a number of people were like, all right, well, UXPA, you've had your chance for 25 years. You can't get your act together to unify the field, right? And Susan, you can, I mean, if you think I'm speaking out of turn, you can
No, I just
disagree with
think
me.
this is you keep saying I don't want to quibble with UXPA and then you keep like quibbling.
Quibbling. Well, this is not
Yes,
the
I have
quibble.
a long history with UXPA.
Yes. Uh, so this was like the moment for them to, maybe come in and unify things, especially because it looked for a little bit like, all right, well, UXPA, like maybe they'll see the local chapters, but then there are other groups like, what is it? IDF was gonna,
Or
no, sorry,
IXDA.
not IXPA. Thank you. Um,
IXDA.
IXDA. Yeah. IXDA, maybe they'll come in there, and they'll sort of start the local chapters, and that'll be the sort of the ground roots. And there'll be, at least, if there's not a UXPA chapter, at least there'll be an IXDA chapter everywhere, and then that'll be the glue that kind of can bind the
And
community.
then
And then, I don't know if it's public knowledge or not. I won't say much. We'll just say that
they went up in flames.
it's you guys can do your own research. I don't want to. I'm not going to say any rumors, but apparently I guess it's the international organization. I wouldn't, because it's not the national branch, because they have an international
Yeah.
one. But the international organization is in all sorts of straits, and
Yeah.
I don't even. Maybe they still exist. I don't know what the current status is. I don't know if there's a board. So, for example, I'm here in Columbus, and we've done a decent job here in Columbus of making somewhat of a UX kind of group out of nothing. And nominally, it's an IXDA chapter, but we're I don't think it's ever really been affiliated. We're
Like
having
it's not
events
an
that, like,
official chapter.
I don't know. I don't think it's, we just, no one, yeah. And so it's not a UXBA chapter. It's not really an IXDA chapter. It just sort of exists. So I was hoping that I could start some momentum to bring
You thought
international
when you
groups.
came back from UXPA conference,
We'd have a plan forward. We'd have
yeah,
motivation. We'd have
and that
some
didn't
sort of
happen.
no, no, it did not happen. Too many, uh, too much uh, friction. Too much,
Mm.
not personal friction,
But you
but
did have but
economic
you
friction.
did enjoy the conference
Yeah. Again, what I'll say is we were having some of these deep discussions, right? About
at the conference?
yeah, about
Mhm.
all the problems of UXPA and the lack of local support and what should happen in the future and all this stuff. And we're having all these conversations with great people at the UXPA conference, right? So it's like at the end of the day, if you want to use that terrible whatever, like that's where a lot of these important conversations would are taking place. So, in some ways, you want to replace it. In some ways, it's irreplaceable, and
Yeah.
I think that's part of the frustration for me personally. I won't speak for anyone else, but at least for me personally, because you can sort of see you can see the potential, and
Mm.
it's but especially since COVID, the start and stop nature of the lack
Yeah.
of community, and it's not just UXPA, and it's not just conferences. We have known a number of people who've tried in both locally and internationally to get like various UX Slack groups going to have a sense of shared community.
Yeah.
And it's all just buried in mud. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of that is a lack of standardization and a lack of standardized
Yeah, it's so
professional practice.
interesting.
And
You know, I think
we have complained about this on the podcast
yeah,
before.
yeah, we have. I think in general, you know, well, I have, I'm gonna sound like an old person, of course, but, back in the day, you know, I think professional associations had more importance in people's work lives in the past than they do now, in general.
Maybe it depends on the
Maybe I'm wrong. You think it depends on
I
the
think it depends on the
industry?
profession. I mean, I don't want to speak out of turn, but like I think like some groups,
Are very strong?
I mean, it's wild. You go on meetup.com, every single town of like 4,000 people has some sort of tech developer,
Mm,
girls who
okay.
code,
Yeah, alright.
AI,
So it's
crypto
just
group.
alright. So
They're
maybe it's
everywhere.
just, yeah, I mean, for a long time, there wasn't any UX stuff because there were hardly any UX people, and then the whole field took off and it became, popular. But yeah, um, I I I think it's important. I wish it would come back. I did go through the days when there were several organizations that had very strong local groups and lots of meetings. UXPA, IXDA, Chi, SIG Chi,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh,
Yeah. So
you know.
I hope that we're not done, right? That we're just it's like I feel
You
like
think it's a lull?
what's now you at various times you were sort of into sort of Eastern kind of religious
This is
stuff.
we're really going off topic. Yes, what do you
What
yes, I was.
what's the thing with like the cycles where you like you like you have to go
Reincarnation?
what no I know it's like reincarnation as a broad sweep, but there's something there's a specific version of that, and maybe some sort of maybe it's
Yeah, I have no
Hinduism or
idea what
something.
you're talking about.
Basically that like there's those like this
Things go
like this
with the
life
wheel turns
circle, like the
around. Yeah,
wheel of something. Anyways,
yeah.
I can see the picture of it in my head of some
So you think that
ancient.
it may come back in some
No, well,
form?
I'm just saying like this whole like the UX needs to have like a organ. They'll figure out like a unified something. Like
Yeah.
we just
Yeah, we go round and round with
yeah.
that for
So
sure.
we just continue. So it's
Yeah.
progress will be made. Progress will be lost. It'll just continue to go in a circle.
And where is next year's UXPA conference?
Next year's USPA conference is, I believe, they do every other year in the US, and then in
And
I
then
think
in
they call it
Europe?
international, but it's basically
Yeah,
Europe. It is in Amsterdam,
Amsterdam.
and registrations are open, and I have to decide
You
if I'm
mean
going to
not
apply.
registrations? You mean like
Sorry,
they're
submission applications
submissions for speaking
for
or
speaking. Yeah, I
yeah.
have to decide if I'm going. Um,
Are you going to apply? You taught a workshop there in this year's one,
yeah, no, it's tough, I would like to. The
but
Netherlands
that's a big travel commitment.
is far away,
Yeah,
and I don't mind. I'm just a little peek behind the curtain. Uh, I don't mind this. UXPA has never particularly compensated their speakers well
yeah,
compared to other conferences,
conferences. Yeah,
or maybe not other conferences, because it compared to other private
yeah,
entities, which again, I think that's totally fine.
yeah,
I'm not saying that they need to,
yeah.
but it does.
Make it
Uh,
hard to go all the way to Amsterdam.
yeah. Especially, I got the kid at home, and then, from
Yeah,
us, right? We have to justify the business expense.
yeah,
And in the past, usually we do like a Europe tour where we
yeah.
go and do a bunch of stuff in Europe,
So
and
yeah,
to do some work over there, and that sort of
yeah,
pays for the airfare and pays for the
yeah.
hotel and that sort of thing. So it's one thing to sort of justify the, hey, head down to Florida,
Right. And a different
and
thing to head over to
mingle,
Amsterdam. Yep.
different thing to head over to Amsterdam.
Yep.
Um, Especially because I'll be flying first class. No, I don't.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, I don't. I do not fly first class. I do not fly first class. Um, you've flown business class to Europe.
I have.
Have you ever flown first class to Europe?
No, to Europe? No. No, but I have flown business class a
Which
couple
is which is
times
basically domestic
when
flight,
the
right?
client pays for it. I which I've been lucky. I've had several clients
Several
that
clients. Yeah.
did pay for it.
You
So,
you know you've made it when the event you're going to do, the client is like, we'll pay for your airfare, dot dot dot, and it's like
business
business
class.
class. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a
That's
milestone.
is that the top of the corporate mountain?
I
No, I
don't
guess
know. It
that
wasn't first
it's
class.
not first class, and then the step up from that is private jet. Like, if you're a real executive, right? You don't you don't fly commercial. I mean,
Yeah, I think we had all those discussions when when I spoke at the From Business to Buttons conference in Stockholm, and
yeah.
I was the opening speaker and Al Gore was the closing speaker, and we were kind of comparing
Yeah,
his trip
yeah.
and his
He's a,
green room experience
yeah, it's a little
to
different,
my trip
he
and
was
my green room
he was
experience.
he was almost the most powerful person on earth. He was like
That was years ago, and he
4,000.
was still very well known. Yeah,
Yeah, for sure, but I'm just saying, I
yeah.
mean, he was like 4,000
I
votes for
still
Pat
love that.
Buchanan in
I was
Florida
the
from being
opening
president.
speaker, Al Gore was the closing speaker. I love throwing that out in
I know.
conversation.
And it's all down all down from there.
No, it wasn't. Don't say that.
Well, now you're just on the podcast, so I
I
don't
went from
know.
that to this
To
goofy
Quincy
podcast.
podcast. Yeah. How the mighty have fallen. So okay, so nice things about UXPA.
Yeah.
I talked about the venue and obviously the people. I mean,
Yeah.
it's great. I will say the UXPA crowd definitely a little more. I guess I'll say hardcore. Even the people who are young, who are just getting into the field, they often are researchers or
Yeah,
have
you were impressed with
masters,
the
or
quality of the
I went to a number of talks,
knowledge.
and I've been to, geez, I don't know.
You've been to a lot of
There have been
conferences.
people who've been to more conferences than me, but have I been to like 20 UX conferences,
You've
30,
been to a
40?
lot.
It's a
Yeah.
lot. And this may sound weird. Again, we're doing a pull, behind the curtain episode. It's strange when for those of you who have ever spoken at a conference, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's it's a little it's strange when you speak at a conference versus when you go there to listen. And there is a certain element of, I suppose it's like, I'm like I know a lot about my particular topic. So if there's anything that's similar to the talk that I would give, I feel it's hard for me at least to just sort of
Sit
to
back
like
and
learn
listen.
anything, because a part of me is like, I already know this. A part of me is sort of being like, well, I would have said
I
this or
wouldn't have
that.
explained it that
A
way.
part of me
Yeah.
is jealous because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love being
yeah,
on
'cause
stage and I was like,
I'm not
ah,
speaking on that topic,
like
they
I
are.
want to,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah,
and so if it's
yeah.
something that's not in my wheelhouse at all, right,
Yeah.
then that would be
Then
sort of,
it's kind of interesting and
but
fun.
especially if you're, and people will definitely understand this, especially if you're speaking at a conference,
Yeah.
it is hard to focus on anything about learning because you're in your head, you're thinking about, you're thinking about your talk, you're thinking about who to network, you're thinking about, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you're not there to
You're not
learn.
just there to learn and
Yeah, so
yeah.
there's other conflicting stuff, and you're not. I
Yeah.
don't feel like I am as open to learning as if I
Yeah.
am just at
You're
a
right. It
conference.
is a really different experience.
And but this conference, I wanted to go to a lot of talks,
Yeah.
and maybe it's because my talk was early in the week, but my expectations for talks were moderately low, not super low. Like I thought the
Yeah.
speakers would be fine, but I didn't think that I would be that interested, or
In
it'd be
some of
stuff
the
I already knew
topics. Yeah.
about, or maybe I'd pick up an interesting tidbit here or there. And I was fairly impressed. Most of the topics, even topics that I've heard. Again, I've been to like 40 UX
Yeah.
conferences. Like I've heard the talk on you
Right.
know uh, the, the user journeys, or like I
Whatever. Right, right.
whatever the yeah, right, I've heard like 5 of these on this
Right.
particular thing. So I, not to say I know it, not to say I could do it or teach it, I've sort of seen this talk before, and I have a very good memory for stuff. So like I am also the person who can't listen to the same album over and over, or watch the same movie more than a couple times, or
Okay.
just so it, anyways. And I was impressed. I thought the speakers were great. I thought there were the presentations were well crafted and
All
well
right.
delivered.
Wait a minute. I get to put you on the spot.
Come on, it's been months. I
No,
barely remember.
you just said you have a really good memory. I want you to tell me one talk that you went to that you thought was particularly interesting. You don't have to describe it, the whole
And I
thing.
won't say, who it does,
All right.
because I
Why?
don't want
Because you
to.
don't remember?
Well, that is part of it, but I also don't want to like
Play
talk about
favorites.
individual
All right.
people on the
Just but
podcast.
can you just say one
Yeah,
topic,
no,
one
I'll give you more,
yeah.
more than one. There was a lady who I think is in the Twin Cities, up sort of near your neck of the woods, and she had a really interesting talk on ethics and UX. It's
Hmm?
something that ethics and design, something I have obviously
Yeah,
done a
that's
lot of.
interesting that you thought it was a
Um,
good talk because that is something you teach.
well, no, what not? It's to to have someone else interested in the thing you're interested in is
It's kind of fun.
is
Yeah.
fun. And so I went and I said, hey, afterwards I introduced myself, and I don't think we have a group. I don't think there's anything that will
Yeah.
come of it, but that's always good to know. Um, there was a really good talk by I believe a pair of lovely women who just started up I think it's mostly UX design shop,
Mhm.
and it was sort of they had a great title. It was like it was like 20 to 200K in 4 months, 5 months, or something like
How
that. It
they
was
built their,
how they scaled
business?
it, or maybe it was like 0 to 1 million in 10
Yeah.
months. It was a great title,
Yeah.
um, and they uh, that was a really good talk. Again, I mean, we already did a startup. It doesn't necessarily apply to us,
Right.
but
But it was
I
still a good
thought
talk.
that their drive and I mean, at the end of the day, it was sort of like, have some good ideas, be really good designers.
Yeah.
Like they just have a great sense of aesthetic design. Everything's pretty. They're, I don't want to say they're type A, but they focus on the details. All the details are
Mm.
well thought out, right there. Um, Hustlers. like making
What
connections.
so
Like, it's
based
great.
on your going to the UXPA conference or maybe just in general,
I can keep
what
going.
do you think are the issues or topics in the field of UX that people seem to be the most interested in right now?
Well, there was I mean, again, this was a number of months ago, and there was, and they announced, they have to put the list together months before that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of AI stuff, back when maybe before the AI hype bubble burst a little bit. There's a lot of like AI this and AI that, and how to use AI, and here's how we use AI, and here's why we shouldn't use AI. And
Mm,
like, there were a lot of those talks, and I think some of them, like the instinct would be, and those were the popular ones. I'm not really sure that's true. I think some people were really into it. I think some people were burnt out from the whole AI
mm,
discourse. Um, it's one of the reasons that on our podcast we don't do it every time,
mhm,
because you can talk about it forever. It's interesting.
mm.
There's, but I think some people do get burnt out from it. Um, I, I think, yeah. So some of the trying to remember crowd size. I would also go to weird ones, right? So like,
So you don't know
I
if
like
you were
going to
seeing
more
those
esoteric
typical.
topics, like the ethics one.
Mhm.
Um, and
You
so
said there was a lot of interest in or at least a lot of activity in around UX research.
yeah, well, that's just the UX Bay conference. I think it's used researchy, you know.
Mm,
A lot of the other, I mean, look, the vast majority of UXers or people UX adjacent are have their feet in design or product,
yeah,
not research,
yeah,
and maybe I will say product or design or strategy. Maybe I
yeah,
would include, or development.
yeah,
Um, it's not really, Figma, that kind of thing. It's not really research.
yeah,
And I think, relatively speaking, UXPA has a fairly big research contingent.
yeah.
So quant, a little bit, lots of qual. Um, I mean, Measuring You is a sponsor there. I mean, so there's like, the heavy hitters of
Yeah,
UX
of
research
UX research, yeah,
are sort of there.
yeah,
Um, a lot of people, relative to the field, a lot of people with advanced degrees,
mm,
masters and
mm,
PhDs, and it's a little more academic, which is a good thing, right? Like that is what it was. That's what it should be. I think that's fantastic. Um, but it does make for, I think there's a couple, maybe there were a couple talks about you sort of using advanced tools if you're doing this type of user research or this
mm,
other type of. I mean,
mhm.
Jeff um, gave a talk about whatever he was working on, which
Jeff
unfortunately
Sorrow
I missed.
from Measuring You.
Yeah. So yeah, so I mean there are uh yeah, so a little more, and again, a talk like that, it's a long conference. It's like 3 or 4 days plus
Yeah,
workshops. And so I think there's a little, and they were doing like 3 or 4 tracks at a time. I mean, it's
there's a lot going on.
nuts.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, so I think there was there a little more on just like they can go a little more niche,
mm,
and I think
mhm,
that's good. So I try to go to some of the more niche ones, but it's hit or miss, right? Like,
yeah,
some of the stuff is just not stuff I do in my day to day. Sometimes some of it
yeah,
I find interesting, some of it I don't find interesting.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I mean, and there were many more I went to, and there were many more I missed
yeah.
as a conference of that sort, that size and nature uh, happens.
And you did a
So
workshop on, UX
strategy,
strategy.
yeah, that's the title of the workshop.
Mhm,
Well attended.
mhm.
I think I had the most people attending for the workshop, which I was surprised at because, you know,
You
in
said
my
you
head,
sold
UX
out,
strategy,
didn't you?
yeah, in my head, like UX strategy,
You're like,
boring,
"Okay,
and
wait a minute, you can't say that. You
that's
teach
what
a
I.
workshop on it, and it's
Well,
one
no,
of
but
your areas of specialty, and you think it's boring."
think of the talks that you give. They're so engaging, and they're
Oh, well,
about
thank you.
fun,
Of
and
course.
you
I
have
teach
pictures of,
UX strategy, too, but, yeah, I understand what you're saying.
right, compared to like, some of the fun brain science stuff like vision and
Yeah,
motion, and
right, right.
um,
Unconscious mental processing.
I mean, that stuff can, I think, is maybe a little played out, but There's
Oh, thank you. You mean it's
or AI, right? Like I just assumed like the
yeah,
workshop
yeah.
on AI would be full,
Right. But the
um,
workshop on UX strategy was the one that
or
sold out.
something
I like
something
it.
even more something more practical.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
not I mean I made mine practical, but
Right.
like this wasn't one, but something about how to design a research study really well, right?
Yeah,
Something that you
yeah.
would because in a workshop, right, you have a whole like it was a
Yeah,
couple hours, but
several hours, yeah.
right, you get to really dive in a way that you can in just a
Well,
little short talk.
people wanna know
Oh,
about UX strategy.
I was yeah, apparently I was wrong. So that's why I'm working on a book about it forever and ever and ever. I thought the book was going to be done by the time UXPA rolled around. That was my
Oh,
goal, to
boy.
be done
Yeah,
with it.
we've missed that deadline.
Well, the kid happened, and
You
all
had to
my creative
I get
juice just immediately evaporated,
it.
just gone, gone. Lack of sleep, too much. You get no concentration. So it's just. I will say that this last week we have started working on it again a little bit.
Again, it's back in play. How yeah,
Other things I want to talk about books.
yes.
Any other UXPA stuff?
No, that's good.
That
Thank you
was
for that.
wow. That went way too long. Would you keep asking questions?
Sorry.
Um, we are in the process of revamping some of the books that we have published. Um, uh,
Yeah.
my econ book, Susan's, two or three of Susan's
We
previous
have
works.
second editions.
Between second editions and also the publishers reverted some of the rights back to
Yeah.
us. Some of the not even poorly selling, just not as amazing selling as 100 Things Every Designer Needs to Know About People. They stopped publishing in print because they were
Right.
really
They're
just
not doing
focusing
hard
on the hits
copies.
these
Yeah.
days, which is fine. But they were nice enough, I suppose, is the word. We cajoled them enough to revert the rights back to us. So we are, um, we're starting up our own little publishing unit. If anyone's interested in having a book published, you can get in touch with us.
Right. We are now officially book publishers.
Yep,
Guthrie knows all about
we bought a
how to do
bajillion
it. And
ISBNs.
he can do that. We can
So we're in the process of doing
of
that
doing it.
better.
Hmm.
We had self-published a number of stuff on number of things on Amazon, and that's
But now
fine.
now
But
we're
we're doing it the
for
better
real.
way now with
Yeah.
real ISBNs. You'll be able
Yeah.
to, if you work at a library or university,
You
it'll
can
be
find the
like
book and all
in
that.
the system and
Yeah.
for textbooks and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
So I'm
So
excited about that.
yeah, we've done two. Two are done, not rolled out correctly yet, but they're done.
But ready. Yeah.
And I'm working on a third, which is my behavioral econ book. And once we do that, I think I'll be ready to make the big switch. I think
Yeah.
there might be another one out there. We'll
Yeah.
have to
So
check.
lots of book stuff going on.
Lots of book stuff going on. Work stuff, book stuff, conference things, baby stuff. Um, so now we're trying to get back to
Our
our
podcasts.
podcast, which we do like to do. I know it doesn't feel like it sometimes.
Well, hopefully we can start doing them regularly. Although I don't know that we have a good idea about topics.
There's a list somewhere with a million
I,
topics.
I know we have a list with a million, but I don't know
Um,
if how well
how many?
curated that
Guess how
list
many we've
is.
done?
How many oh, guess how many podcasts we've done?
It's on our website.
Oh,
Episode number
oh,
blank was the
jeepers.
last one. Research plans and protocols. That was the last one we did. Episode number.
What number was that? I have no idea. 368?
No,
No?
no, we have not been recording that regularly. 306. That's a lot of
100
163.
what is it?
163.
163. Okay.
But that is still that's a lot.
That's a lot of episodes.
That's a lot of episodes, right?
Yeah.
You know, like if you
We'll
think
have to
about
think
it,
about if there's anybody we
if you
haven't
listen,
interviewed anyone in a while.
yes, if you listen 8 hours a day, that's
Yeah, how long?
20 days
20 days of listening to us talk? I
of
don't think people
episodes.
should do that.
It's a lot, right? That's
Don't
more.
do it.
It's more content than, and
than
I
you
know
want.
compared to, other podcasts that are, been around for years and years. I mean, but
Right,
again,
right.
we are not
We are not that.
content creators are is a side
It's a
portion
side
of what we
thing.
do. It's not our main bread and butter.
But I always say I always ask our audience if there are topics that you'd like us to cover, you should let us know. And you can send us an email, info@theteamw.com. Send us an email and tell us what you want us to cover and or who you'd like us to interview.
That's right. Um, so any what else should we talk about?
I don't know. I'm not sure what we should talk about.
All right. Well, maybe we'll do one or two small little kind of catch up topics.
Okay.
This was always going to be a weird episode because
Because
getting our
we've been gone for so
bearings,
long.
talking about the UXPA conference,
Yeah.
talking about what's going on. So, um, one other thing I wanted to do, just sort of as a current events catch up.
Yeah.
We try to do a balance of things that are in the news slash big kind of um, topics slash nerdy UX stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if we ever always get
Balance,
um,
right?
that balance right, but we sort of try. And so this is going to be maybe us opining on current things. There's a Supreme Court podcast I listen to, and they just want to talk about weird admiralty law cases from like the
And
1800s.
you listen to this because you're a lawyer. I don't
Right.
listen to it.
Well, and I find it fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's not a partisan Supreme Court podcast.
Right.
It is for attorneys.
Nerdy Supreme Court.
It's nerdy Supreme Court,
US law,
deep
legal
in the,
things.
yeah.
Yeah.
But even though that's where they want to be, that's what they try to do.
Yeah.
There's some antitrust case, right? That's not
Yeah.
partisan in any way. They really want to talk about that one. But if a big Supreme Court case comes out or some sort of controversy, the audience wants to hear what they have to say about it. I
Okay.
know I do, right? Like,
Okay.
I just want their opinions on this hot topic.
Yes.
And so I do think that we the, we we should indulge that portion of our audience as well. So that's sort of what we're doing in this episode. Do you want to talk just a little bit about the UX industry, because I think that's when we had left off, yeah, AI still kind of doing stuff. Figma, the merger, antitrust, where's that going? Those are sort of the topics that was going on. Um, so since then, I think really I don't want to say the only big UX news, but some of the larger kind of through lines in the UX field, I think, has been the job market.
Yeah.
So do you want to just sort of expound on what you're seeing and hearing and feeling a little
Yeah,
bit?
well, I can accept that. Well, first of all, it's not at all a scientific view, right? It's just
No,
anecdotal.
this is what these people just want our takes. They
Okay.
want our opinions.
Well, it's actually kind of mixed. I mean, on the one hand, well, okay. Since the first of the year, 2024, I think the job market was for UX was not good. Um, it had been so hot in previous recent years, and then I I think there was a lot, especially by the large tech companies. There was so much hiring, and then they kind of backed off from that and actually laid people off, and so on. So I think around the first of the year, if you were out there looking for a job, I think you were very discouraged. And I know I knew several people who were and felt very discouraged. But since then, I think it has picked back up. From what I'm hearing, I know a lot of people who had been out of a job and or had stopped thinking about switching, who now are back applying, and there seems to be some more jobs out there. So I think it has picked back up somewhat. I also think it's a little misleading because I think that that bubble was so sudden and so strong that when the bubble went away, it made it feel like it was a depressed job market, but I don't know that that was true. It was just back to normal. Um, so I wouldn't say it's growing by leaps and bounds, but I think I personally know several companies who had put a hold on hiring for a while, but now are starting to recruit and hire again. So I think the job market is pretty good. Um, I think there is a and you Guthrie, you can say whether you agree or disagree with that. I think there's um, I think there's confusion. I hear different things from people and what I read and leaders in the field and so on, where some of them say, UX is even more important now than it ever has been. And then I hear sometimes people say, no, it's done. It's done. There's one person I saw recently said, uh, everything is so well designed now that it's not necessary. And I was like, oh boy. you know, I'm not going to agree with that one at all, at all. So I think there's some confusion out there. I know there's definitely confusion as always, or maybe even more confusion about what is the role of UX anyway. That's always a confusion and what it means and who's doing it. So that plays into how good the job market is because it depends on what you think it is. But did that answer the question or not really?
No, no, I just we just it wasn't really a question. It was just your opinion.
Yeah.
I think we can all think of many terrible UX experiences we've had recently. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah, there's
I'm
still
sure there's
still a
work to be
need.
done. As long as those agile coders just keep pushing out garbage,
As long as,
products at
they
a
do as long
rapid agile minimum clip,
I had a
minimum viable product
conversation
clip.
not too long ago with
It'll
someone,
work.
uh, who is like a product manager, and I made the comment that, feature-driven design is the bane of, you know,
Yeah.
design, and that's the cause for all the problems. And I was on a call with him, and he just looked at me, like, with shock on his face. He was like, "What?" Like, because in his view, feature-driven design was design. Like, how could
That's the value add.
it didn't
If your
it
product has a feature that your competitor does not, that
I
makes your
know. No,
product
I
better.
understand
But
why
that's
people
not
think that,
true.
but
That is okay,
so we
right?
had a very interesting conversation. And I think I even called you at one point and
Yeah.
said, "I need an analogy for talking with this person," and you helped me
Yeah.
come up with a
Yeah,
great
yeah.
analogy, which he then got. He was like,
No, I'm good at coming up with
"Oh."
analogies. That's one of my special skills.
Yeah, so I think, as you said, you made the little a side comment about agile developers, and so I will also add in, yeah, as long as all these product teams are designing features, then UX UXers will always be needed. Uh,
It is so true that the more features you add to the product, the harder it is to use. And
well,
the
and
best
it's not just the more features. It's just when you focus on features, when you
Sure, yeah, yeah,
focus your
they're not
design
buried
on
somewhere.
features, you're not focusing your design on the
Usability.
overall user experience.
The
You're not.
Okay, what are the two best
Yeah.
designed uh we'll say products that use electricity because you can design like
Yeah.
you know like a
A
A 2
can
by 4
opener.
is really
Yeah,
well
okay.
designed to
Yeah,
do its thing, but that's it.
okay.
The products that use electricity. 2 best. I have my answer.
Oh my god. People ask me this all the time, and then I don't say and I'm like, "The 2 best products that I use."
It doesn't have to be that you use. It doesn't have to be brand. I mean, for me, it's a category. It's not like I have a this brand of a product. It's like two. There are two things in my head that are the the best designed.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I so rarely like the design of anything.
All right, I'll give you mine.
What?
Number one,
Yeah.
light switch.
I was
It's a
thinking
light
about
switch.
light
It's great.
switch.
Everyone knows how to use it. Click, click, click. And if you could get a modern light switch with like a
Mm,
little dimmer,
yeah,
it's fine. You don't have to use it,
yeah,
but you can use it. It's
yeah.
there. It works
Okay, alright.
every time.
What's the
Light switch is
second
good.
one?
Second one, toaster. Put in the bread. You press the little thing. There's a knob so you can like
Okay,
adjust it
okay.
if you want.
Alright, but I'm
Toaster.
gonna alright, I understand
And
these.
guess what? I have a fancy toaster oven where I put my bread in and I say how many slices, and
Yeah,
then I pick how toasty I want it, and I press a
yeah,
little button,
yeah.
and then my bread's perfect every time.
Yeah, I've used your toaster oven and I've burned the bread, so I don't think it's that easy to use. But, alright, but what about, boy, I'm
And my
thinking.
point is, to me, they're so great because even if you have,
They do
we'll even
one
say a
thing.
fancy toaster, or I have a fancy toaster oven with a bunch of just stuff. The focus is on the thing that it is for. So a toaster is
Yeah.
a good toaster, not a toaster of 10 years ago, is focused on toasting bread and the toasting bread experience.
Well, it's interesting because
And now it's
there are some
terrible because they have
there are some p
apps.
so there are some
Yeah.
products that I can think of that at least there's one so far I'm looking around in my room here thinking. There's one that I really like a lot, but getting it set up was not fun, but
Yeah.
using it, I really enjoy.
Now, I think that there is really good, the more complex it is, the better the design can be because there's more to work with. So, like an iPhone is amazingly well designed, but think about how much like it does. Like it's such
What
so much more.
could you answer the question, though, around having to do with software or an app?
Um, the calculator app's okay
The
because it's
calculator app hardly does anything.
you know, um, Notepad on is not bad. It does what? Just Notepad.
Oh, well,
Mm.
see, no, but this is I know what you're saying, though, because people ask us this all the time. They ask us to give them I teach, these training workshops for a firm, in
Oh,
Sweden,
I
and
yeah.
and the
I have
students
another
are
question. I
always
know what this is.
asking me,
Yeah,
"Could you give us an
give an
example
example.
of well-designed
Designed.
software?" And I'm like,
No.
"No,
There's stuff where they've done a good job with the
a
garbage
part of it,
problem. They're like handed like a pile of garbage and they turn it into something nice. Or they
kind
like
of."
do a good job putting it all together given the limitations that they have. I have another good one for you.
What?
The best designed piece of software that I've used
Yeah,
is on Mac OS. So you would know this. Well, maybe you remember this. When you are in the Finder,
yeah,
you can press the space bar
yeah,
and a preview of like a PDF or a picture will come up,
yeah,
or a Word document, and you can
yeah.
scroll, you can see it, and you press the space bar again or the exit button, and it goes away. That is.
Do you
That's
even
the
know you can do that though? Or you just find that out by accident?
What do you mean?
Is it obvious?
Oh, no, definitely not, but it doesn't matter.
But
That to me,
the interaction is good.
it's the best. No, it's not just the interaction, it's the flow. I'm looking for a
Oh, yeah.
file. I
Yeah,
just
no, I
need to
get it.
know our FEIN number that's on our
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
W-9, and I
yeah,
can never remember it.
yeah.
And so in Windows, you have to like find it, double click it, open
Yeah,
it up.
don't
Now you have
say
a
this
tab.
to me
You have a
because you're
tab
gonna
that's
make
open.
me wanna go
I
back
just
to
press. I just
You're
press
gonna make me wanna
the
go back
button
to
and
Apple
go.
because I switched and
Um,
everything is Windows
Here, I'll
over
give
here.
you a good Windows one.
Alright, what?
Drag to maximize. You press on if you have a window open,
Yeah.
you can drag it around. If you drag it to the top,
Yeah.
it'll automatically maximize. If you drag it to the left, it'll
Yeah,
create,
that's true.
left hand.
That's pretty
Yeah.
good.
So that's there you go. I've given one to Windows.
Thank you.
So no, but like that interaction where it's
I
like
think
I
it's
just want
easy
to
to I think
read.
it's easy to turn the page on my in my Kindle book.
Yeah, that's a great one.
I can go forward and I can go
Go
backwards
back.
without any
I
problem.
do miss a little bit the old Kindles with the physical buttons though.
Yeah, I don't even remember those.
Um, so these are all examples of again UX where you just do just like make one experience really joyful and like just have a focus. You know, like it's like it's like
I don't
you
know,
get a
you know?
blender and the blender connects to the Wi-Fi so you can sync it with your phone and then you can like look up a recipe and then it'll tell the blender to like blend for a minute and just like why I could just like press like 1 minute on the blender. It doesn't have to be a dumb blender. It could be a blender with a timer. Our blender has you just select 1 minute and so like why does it need to connect to my phone? Why do I need a subscription service to my blender? And I understand, right, that they're like, well, we need reoccurring blender
They want
revenue
revenue.
to for our profit,
I know.
margins and
I
just
know.
what why? Just do the thing well.
Sorry, Guthrie. Now you're starting to sound like me.
Well, I'm getting old. That's what happens when you get old, is you get to yell
You
at people
get
from your board.
curmudgeonly.
Yeah. Um yeah. Okay. One more idea on the job
Okay.
market that I
What?
had that I want to get your opinion on.
What?
UX
Yeah.
is the UX in the United States,
Yeah.
at least, maybe everywhere. UX everywhere. It is protected by um, disformity. That's not really a word.
That's not a word. What does that mean?
What's the opposite of uniform? I'm very tired.
The opposite of uniformity?
Yes.
I don't know. It's a great question. What's the antonym for uniformity? I don't think it's
Antonym?
disformity. You looking this up?
Uniformity. Okay. Consistency, sameness. Those are synonyms. Dissimilarity.
No.
That's what it says. That's what we have.
Well, I don't like that word.
Unlikeness.
I don't like any of these words.
These are terrible.
Anyway, what do you
I like what did I say?
disinformity?
No, I don't think it was. I think it was just disformity.
Disformity. Okay, we'll
Disformity.
use that word. I like that better.
Disformity. Let's see. Uh, diff. Okay, hold on. There's deformity.
Well, deformity is a different thing.
DIFFORMITY.
Oh, spelled that way. Okay, whatever. Anyway, what is your question?
Deformity. No. Deformity.
Okay.
This is a real word. I think I was right.
But it sounds too much like deformity.
Yes, but the definition of deformity
Deformity.
is irregularity or diversity of form,
Yeah,
lack of
there.
conformity.
Lack of form. Let's use that.
Yes.
Okay, what is your question?
Yes. It's a real word. I make up words all the time, but like I'm
Usually
like
they're
I
not real.
nailed it. I
Okay.
nailed it. Okay. The UX field benefits from the deformity of the profession, and it also harms it. So that is to say that most layoffs happen in waves in sectors. We saw, for example, the video game industry get rocked. The pandemic happened, everyone was at home playing video games. The studios were hiring. Every game that came out was a success, big budget, and they were like, "Oh, gaming, like this is it." And they hired all these people because we need this
Yeah.
huge pipeline of games. And Microsoft bought Activision, and it
Yeah.
was just the whole thing. And then the pandemic ended, people got outside. The gaming still strong, but cooled off a little bit.
Yeah.
And they realized, wait,
We have
like
these too
there
many
are,
people.
and Hollywood, same thing happened in Hollywood, where it's like, well, we all these people had made content plays, Amazon, and they realized, well, actually, like, there's actually too much stuff out there,
Yeah.
and we're making stuff. We have to cool off. So in the video game industry, all these people got laid off. Studios, all these, asset
Yeah.
designers, and it was really rough. Um, I think sort of a similar thing happened in um, the tech space is interesting. So Intel, for example, they announced a lot of layoffs. Some of them were on the hardware side, to be sure, but a lot of it was their marketing teams,
Mm.
right? Intel has huge marketing teams to help with their product segmentation, and especially on the consumer side, but maybe even more on the enterprise side, right? They have conferences and events and booths and industry people, and it's just a whole machine. And they let go of a lot of people on the marketing side. And I think that was true in a number of other places too. Like marketing departments kind of got hit. And I think UX benefits a little bit because of the deformity of where the UX stuff sits. So if you are in the marketing department and the COO decides, hey, marketing's got to cut,
Yeah.
200 people, right? Some of those cuts are going to come in UX, especially if the organization doesn't really believe in it, UX.
Yep.
And so if you're in UX, you're like, oh my God, like I got slashed. This other person, other team
Yeah.
on this different company got slashed, right? They're just getting these huge cuts. Or, um, we know people who have a UX team in engineering,
Right. There's
and
UX teams in
engineering budgets,
engineering.
right? This
All
year,
right.
especially the
Right.
beginning of this year, right? They had a
Sometimes they're in
lot of it got cut. They way
yeah,
overhired on the
sometimes they're
engineering
in
stuff.
sometimes the UX people are in tech, sometimes they're
And
all
yeah,
over the organization.
right. So like they can't hire anyone because there's a hiring freeze across engineering, and they're in
Yeah.
engineering. So because UX is not always in one
In the
department, there
same
are
place.
these sort of waves that happen. And depending on if you're a UXer that's a little more on the marketing side and the
Yeah.
design side, or a little more on the research and the
Yeah.
engineering side, like you feel it differently.
Yep.
And so if you were part of the Silicon Valley wave, right, where they let go of a ton of engineers and a ton of, UXers,
Yeah.
it feels like the world is falling.
Right.
But if you're over in product's like, I don't know,
Right.
it's
Right.
going okay
Right.
right now, right? Or vice
Yep.
versa. So that is my theory. Does this
Yeah.
does this ring true to you, that this
I
is
think it
like
does.
the UX job market will never, rarely will everything align
Yeah,
where
it
it's
doesn't
super,
always
super hot?
align. Yep. Yep.
Or
It's
conversely, it also means that if there's a jitter,
yep.
the industry
I
shift
think you're
around.
right. I think you're right,
Well,
which is also interesting because it means that maybe what you should do, and I actually know someone who did this recently, who was
oh
looking
yeah,
for
this
a
is
job,
interesting. Yeah, really fascinating.
is, if you're used to being on the marketing part of an organization or in the product part of the organization or in the engineering part of the organization, and don't assume that your next job is in that part of the organization. You may want to
Yeah.
search in one of the other ones. You may
Espe-
want to
especially if you have some experience and maybe have a foot in UX and a foot
Right. You
somewhere
may want
else.
to, and you may want to, you know,
Market yourself.
market yourself in, you know, put a spin on, you know, UX with a product emphasis or with a marketing emphasis or with an engineering emphasis, depending on which of those is doing pretty well and is in a growth phase. Because I do agree with you, Guthrie. I mean, although there are times when, nobody's hiring, I mean, if there's a bad recession and so on. But typically with these waves that we see, it does tend to be, like you said, marketing is cutting, product is cutting, engineering is one of those is cutting. And so I know someone who was looking for a UX job for quite a long time, and then uh, he said, I'm going to take a product angle because he had that background,
Yeah.
and that worked for him.
So I'm not a UXer. I do
I'm a
product
product
strategy.
manager's product strategy. Instead of UX strategy, he changed it to product strategy, and then he got a job. So, yeah. So I think you know you you're right. UX has deformity, and is not one thing. There's UX design, UX strategy, UX research. It's it's there's a lot of variability, which can sometimes make things frustrating, but can sometimes work for you. So, go ahead and work that, you know?
Absolutely.
All right, Guthrie, we managed to use up all of our time. Amazingly enough, our first podcast episode after a while, but we will come back soon, right? Come
You
on.
know,
Come on.
we
Yes.
really hope so.
The answer is yes. We will.
Um,
I'll push it. I'll make you.
okay. That's I I hope so.
All right. So if people want to get hold of us, info at theteamw.com, right?
Yeah, I was looking up Latin roots of
Oh,
deformity,
just stop.
so I'm
Okay.
I'm I'm
Uh,
down a rabbit hole.
anything else you want to say before we say goodbye?
Sorry if I spoke too much. It's been a while. I had things to get
I
off my
had
chest
things to
apparently.
say.
But I'm glad this is very nice. It's always fun doing these.
Yeah.
Of course, for again, I'll peek behind the curtain. For Susan, she just jumps on and she just has a good time and she says, "I'm out of here," and then I'm
And then
like,
he has to
I have
go
to
do all the work.
I gotta go do the sound
Yeah, let's
mixing
do another one, Guthrie.
and export it and upload it to the server and change the code and put it on the XML feed and
That's true.
yeah, XML change the XML file, all that stuff. So
That's all right. You could do it. I
I
have
know.
faith in you.
If we were a little bigger, I would get someone to engineer the stuff. But last thing. Shout out to Restream. That's who we use to do our audio, both
And video.
volume mixing. Even though we have the
Oh,
plan where you can export 2 tracks, but they do a pretty good job equalizing our EQ, and they put the video together, which we live stream on LinkedIn and YouTube. And I download it for if we ever, sometimes I'll upload the video of us. It does exist of us, the video
yeah.
talking.
Thanks, Restream.
And so yeah, shout out to Restream for having a fairly simple platform that
Yeah.
gives us a lot more consistency. Because back when I was just like pressing record on my own,
Was not a lot of
yeah, I remember
consistency.
you would send me like an audio file of yours, and then I
Oh,
had the
yeah.
audio
It was
file
a
of
big
mine, and
mess.
we were
This is
like had to
much
sync it.
easier. I
Yeah,
definitely like this better.
and less error prone,
Yeah.
which is good for podcasts. All right. Thank you so much. You have a good evening. We're actually recording this in the evening. So
Bye, everybody.
bye.